Hello and welcome to Super Insider, Australian Retirement Trust podcast series on all things superannuation and retirement, funnily enough, so that you can put your feet up at the end of your working life. My name is Anne Fuchs. I am the Executive General Manager of all things advice, guidance and education at our fund. Now, I'm thrilled today to be able to bring in somebody who is an expert on the age pension. And the age pension is sexy. Believe it or not, everyone wants to know about the age pension. So you're getting it here today, viewers and listeners, let me tell you. Now, before I introduce our guest, I just want to remind you that, of course, this is general advice and general information only. So please don't act just on this podcast. If you need more information, you can, of course, go to Services Australia and speak to a Financial Information Services officer. Call us at Australian Retirement Trust, or if you're a member of another super fund, call them. Or if you have a financial advisor, call them. So many different options. But here we are, Justin Bott. Welcome, Community Information Services
Officer from
Services
Australia.
Officer, yes, for Services Australia.
That's it.
It's quite a mouthful. Apologies.
Oh, no worries, and thank you so much for having me.
We are thrilled that you are here. You've come up north of the Tweed.
I have definitely been a bit of a trip this morning, but it's great to have this opportunity to explain how the pension works for your listeners, your viewers.
You are a good man, sir. And before we get into the age pension, tell us a little bit about your career and your passion for the age pension. Where did it come from?
Well, I've been with Services Australia for more years than a lot of people have been alive.
How many decades? Come on.
Getting close to my third decade working with them.
Congratulations.
And I came up through the ranks. So I've been a customer service officer, so the person on the other side of the counter, then managed the teams there. And then the big move for me was into the Financial Information Service, which you've already mentioned. That's the free information service that Services Australia provides to anybody who's got questions about finances.
Amazing.
And it was great fun. I really enjoyed doing that because you'd be talking to not just about pension eligibility, but where super fits in, what account-based pensions are, because a very common customer would be somebody who's about to retire, know they have super, have no idea how they got it, and they have no idea what happens next. And so we'd be talking about that. But we'd also talk about aged care. We'd talk to young people about how they're investing in the first place. And so there's a whole investment story that we're able to help people to understand so that they can understand the language and the terminology and the roles of the financial professionals. And from there, because I really enjoy opportunities like this, moved into the Community Information Officer role, which is just a chance for me to get out into the public and just, again, give the message. This is what the payments are. These are what the eligibility is. This is what's good about things, what's bad about things, and giving that information so that people make their own decisions, but they make them based on good, solid facts. That's what we're trying to give here.
I think I bet a lot of our viewers and listeners didn't even know that was actually a service that the government provided. And how lucky are we as a country to have such an amazing service that we're able to access at no cost? It's truly, truly amazing. And I think probably what is the one favourite thing about your job? Just
this opportunity
coming
to be out.
to Super Insider podcast.
The opportunity to get out to the public and answer questions and have that enlightenment where people, they're clouded, they don't understand what's going on.
The lights come on.
And the lights come on, and helping them to understand. And with a couple of quick pieces of information, there is guidance where there was a wall and we really didn't know where to go. So it's all about that, all about helping people in however we can.
Justin, you and I get out of bed to go to work for the same reason, because helping people just make really good choices and giving them that sense of empowerment and control when they're probably showing up at Services Australia maybe feeling lost or scared, and they probably walk out feeling very different.
We certainly, a lot of people have a sort of an idea of something like the age pension for sure, but that is absolutely the aged care story. You know, mum or dad need to go to aged care, and I don't know. I'm talking about big amounts of money, and I don't know how I'm going to do that. It's all very confusing. And they come out after seeing either our aged care specialist officers or the Financial Information Service, and it's all clear. There is a path. This is all possible. It is something that we can do. And seeing that transformation is just a joy. Yeah.
So speaking of joy, the age pension is joy. It's joyous because What I love about the age pension, which I think it was introduced in the 1920s.
It's been around for a very long time.
Very long time.
Form, yeah.
One of the great policy achievements so that ordinary Australians could retire with dignity, that safety net so that, people could actually put food on the table, a marvellous, marvellous achievement.
Yeah, that guarantee that if I meet the residency requirements for a pension, but if I am, if my income and assets are under the limits, which means that I don't necessarily have much, I will have a source of income, and I'll have that source of income until the day I die, regardless of did I or didn't I pay any tax. That's not part of the picture. It's what are your circumstances right now? Are you at the right age? Where are your income and assets? Are you a resident? Can we pay the pension to you?
So is Marie, I always do I'm a Sound of Music junkie. Okay. Marie, I got married in Salzburg. Kids have got Sound of Music type names. So as Maria von Trapp said, start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start.
Yes.
Age pension.
Yep.
Let's just assume that someone's come down from Mars. What is it and how are you eligible?
Okay, so the age pension is a fortnightly payment that is made to people who meet certain eligibility criteria. Now, the first one is how old you are, because it's an age pension. So right now, that's 67 years of age. It was 60 for women, 65 for men, but it's now been moved up to 67 for both men and women. So you've got to be 67 years of age or over. You have to be an Australian resident with at least 10 years residency in the country. 5 of those have to be in a continuous period of time. So it could be in and out for the rest, but at least 5 years continuous, 10 years total. And then you have to have your income and assets, which is how much you're earning and how much you own, under the limits in order for our pension to actually be payable into your bank account.
So what does that mean, under the limits?
So there's an amount of money that you can have where you get the full rate of age pension. We call those the income and asset free areas.
So that's the full age pension,
to get the
full
age
entitlement.
Pension. Yep. But then once you go over those income and asset free areas, the more that you earn or the more that you own, the less pension you get. So it's a sliding scale until eventually you get to the point where your income or your assets are too high and the pension can't be paid. Now, it's important to say for the pension...
It's a good problem to have, just quietly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If I can't get a pension, that means that I earn quite a lot or I own quite a lot. Now, there are a couple of important things to say with that one. The first one is that the family home, in most cases, is not counted in those limits. So if you own the home that you live in, when we're looking at how much you can have in the way of assets...
That's excluded.
That's excluded. So we're not going to be counting those. And the other one is that you have to pass both the income test and the assets test to be paid. So if your income is I'll go the other way around. If your income is under the limit, but you have too many assets, then we can't pay a pension. And the other way around. If I don't own very much, but I'm still earning quite a decent amount of income, then I can't be paid a pension again because my income is too high. In order for me to get any payment of pension, then I need to get both my income and my assets have to be under those cutoff points in order for the pension to be paid. And regardless of how much pension I get, I also get the pension concession card, which goes with that, which gives me eligibility for other concessions as well. Okay,
so let's just explain what are the typical assets, because people might be, people may not be clear around. Is a car an asset? Is, my boat in the driveway, does Centrelink consider that an asset?
The answer is yes and yes, we do. So when we're looking at when we're talking about assets, we're talking about basically anything that you might own. And that's almost everything. It's actually easier.
What about my dog?
Well, if your dog had a value, then yes, but in most cases, probably not.
No.
It's actually easier to list the assets we don't count than it is to list the assets that we do.
All right.
So the biggest asset is that we don't count is, generally speaking, it's the family home. So that won't be counted in the assets test. The other big one is superannuation when you're under age pension age. So if you or your partner are under age pension age, which again is 67, and your super is still in accumulation, so you're still contributing to it, it's still growing, and importantly, it's being taxed at 15%, then that won't count towards an age, or actually any payment eligibility. We won't count it until you turn age pension age. But if you're 67 and above, whether you've done anything with your super or not, it's going to count as an asset for Services Australia. So superannuation is a big one. Also things like fully paid funerals or fully prepaid funerals, or if you buy a funeral bond, they're also not counted as assets for Services Australia perspective. But pretty much everything else is going to count. So your bank accounts, your share fund, your superannuation, your account-based pensions, your investment properties, your holiday home that's not generating an income, but it is still an asset. All of those things are going to count. The biggest hole, if you like, that people fall into when it comes to assets is that they know the value of their holiday home and they know the balance of their super fund, they know the balance of their bank accounts. Where they may overestimate typically is things like the household contents and personal effects or the car.
And what's the consequence of that?
Well, the more assets you have, the less pension you get.
Okay.
So the way that the pension works is that if your assets are over those asset-free area, for every $1,000 of assets you have over those limits, you miss out on $3 a fortnight of pension. So if I have $10,000 worth of assets over, I'm missing out on $30 a fortnight of pension. So if I'm overestimating the value of my household contents and personal effects, if I'm using things like insurance value or
yes, because people
value,
would probably do that, wouldn't they, if they're wanting to insure what's inside their house in the event it burns down?
And they know that they've insured it for $60,000, so therefore they put it down for $60,000.
Yes,
well,
of course.
Probably, actually, realistically, way too high, because what we're looking for is what would you get in the market today. So
if you put it on Gumtree.
Well, yeah, life on the lawn is the way I describe it.
Oh, I've just had curbside collection. Grim.
That's right. And this stuff nobody's buying. I mean, you're lucky if somebody actually picks it up.
Yeah.
So when your entire CD collection is going for 20 cents a CD, and that 1974 Mission Brown Wickerworth couch is only worth $20 if you're lucky. That's the sort of value that we're actually looking at for your household contents and personal effects. And so realistically, it's not going to be very much.
But what happens though if I inherit something I inherit some property or some money from a family member, and does that count?
New asset? Yes, it will
You
count.
bet.
So realistically, it depends on how much and what you're going to do with it. But yes, a new asset is going to actually have an impact on your eligibility. We are only going to count it from the time that you've actually received it. So it actually has been distributed to you as a beneficiary. But from that moment, you've got 14 days to let us know that you've received it. And that asset will then count added to the rest of your assets and potentially affect your eligibility for pension.
What if I have lots of super fund accounts? What if I'm I'm an older Australian where I haven't, where stapling hadn't happened yet, you haven't consolidated because you've just not paid attention. What do you do then? Does it all just add up?
It's all the nice thing about things like super and account-based pensions nowadays is that they are all actually treated exactly the same. So from a Services Australia's perspective, apart from the added burden of having to get the paperwork for 7 different super funds instead of one super fund, but if the balance is the same, whether it was 100,000 in one fund or 100,000 divided over 7, it's still a $100,000 financial asset, which means it's a deemed financial asset, and we're going to treat that the same as we would $100,000 in an account-based pension, $100,000 in a share portfolio, or $100,000 in a bank account. So from our perspective, apart from, again, the extra reporting required because of the multiple funds, the effect on your pension itself is not going to make any difference how many you have, or even if you've moved it into an income stream or account-based pension in particular, or kept it in superannuation.
Justin, we in the financial services world have a lot of jargon. Do you mind just explaining what the word deeming means?
Sure. So deeming is the way that Services Australia assesses income from what we call financial assets, which is another jargon. So what's a financial asset? When we talk about financial assets, we're talking about your bank accounts, your shares, managed investments, super when you're over age pension age, most account-based pensions, loans that you may have made to other people, excess gifts over the $10,000 gifting limits. They're all what we call deemed financial assets. And deeming means that we actually treat them all exactly the same. So we don't ask you what your drawdown rate from your account-based pension is. We don't care if you're taking 5% or 7%. We don't ask you what the dividends from your share portfolio is or what the interest from your term deposit is. We have an interest rate that we determine or declare or deem that you're going to receive from those investments regardless of the actual income that you're getting from those investments. Now, that deeming rate was actually fixed. There's a lower threshold amount and an upper threshold amount. The lower threshold amount is 0.25%. The maximum income that we're going to say from deemed financial assets at the moment is 2.25%. That was fixed by the government until the 1st of July 2024. it's now been fixed again at that rate to stay until the 30th of June 2025. So it's going to stay at 0.25% and 2.25% until the end of this financial year. And that means that, again, regardless of your level of drawdown, regardless of the dividends, we're going to say that you're earning an income of a maximum of 2.25%.
And then that helps calculate what you're actually entitled to in terms of your age pension.
Yeah, so it's a fixed income source. So you know, if I just put all of those things together and applied the 0.25% and the 2.25%, that is the source of assessable income. And it is worth pointing out, though people often worry about the deeming rates, the majority of customers actually aren't affected by deeming at all. It's irrelevant for them because they're either getting the full rate of age pension, so they're not income tested in the first place, or the pension that they're getting is because the assets are their own, so the income isn't having any impact. So whether you are or aren't receiving the deeming rate and its effect on your pension,
don't lose sleep over it,
only affects those who are income tested. And so for the majority of people, don't worry about it. It's not actually doing anything to your rate at all.
Okay, so now superannuation and the interplay in the relationship between superannuation and the age pension, which is kind of like bangers and mash in a way. It's a lovely combination. Where do we start with that?
So when you lodge an application for the age pension, we're going to want to know where your superannuation is at because you're over age pension age. Whether you've done anything with it or not, it's going to be counting as an asset, a deemed financial asset. Then if you choose to do something to move it into an account-based pension for all the tax and other benefits that an account-based pension provides, from our perspective, we treated it the same as if it was in the super fund. So it won't make any difference to your rate of payment. So even if one was sitting there not paying anything into your bank account and the other one starts drawing down at 5% and you're now getting this income, your rate of pension is actually going to be exactly the same. The difference is actually going to come down the track because with an account-based pension, you've got that required drawdown, and the required drawdown gets bigger and bigger as you get older and older, which means the likelihood that you're going to have to start eating into the capital is going to be more and more and more. As the capital starts getting eaten into, because theoretically you're spending it and enjoying it, your assets are going to start gradually going down. Therefore, your pension eligibility is going to start going up. Now, if you're on a pension already, we twice a year will update the balance of your account-based pensions to take that into account. So it's an automatic process for most funds. Self-managed super funds are a different story, but for most of the rest of the funds, it's an automatic process. And so you might notice around February or August that there's a bit of a change in your pension rate as your account-based pension balance changes. But apart from that, that's realistically how it works. The fact that you are now drawing down an income from it rather than having it sitting in super and accumulation will make no practical difference.
It's a good thing. It means you're enjoying your life.
Yeah, that's where super is designed to go. You can do all sorts of other things, but that's where super is meant to go.
Okay, so before we wrap it up, what are some of the other cool things that Services Australia provides in terms of support, particularly for retirees?
So the big one is if you're not eligible for a pension, there's a thing called the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. So the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card is a health concession card. It's not assets tested, which is a really important part. It has an income test, which is a combination of adjusted taxable income plus deemed interest from your account-based pensions. Now, that is something that people who are over age pension age and meet the residency requirements can apply for. Now, with all of these, with the limits and everything, there's an awful lot of information that we haven't been able to give because there's a lot of numbers. What I really recommend to anybody who wants to know about this sort of stuff is to go to our webpage, which is servicesaustralia.gov.au. On the front page, you're going to find a whole lot of panels on it. One of them says ageing. There's also for health and disability or for looking at raising kids, but click on the one that says ageing. It's got a lot of information and support for people that are in that stage of life. But also it goes through the limits, the income cutoff points, the asset cutoff points, goes through the limits and also talks about the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card and the income cutoff points for that one as well. So that's the best place that I recommend anyone needs to go if they want to find out today what the new cutoff points for the pension and the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card might be.
I reckon we've done a pretty good job covering what is a massive subject and distilling it down. So this is kind of like the 101 of age pension. Justin, your passion for what is one of the great policy achievements, that safety net to protect us all in our older years, has been a joy to talk to you about. So thank you so much for making the effort to come along.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, good. And so to our listeners and viewers, please, if this is something of interest, tell your family and friends, give us a top top shelf rating on Spotify or wherever you download your podcasts. And we'll look forward to you joining us again soon.